this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about tight cast-ons when you're working in circular knitting, when you're knitting in a tube. And most specifically, I didn't want the title to be 20 words long. Most specifically, I want to talk about tight cast-ons when you're working on 16-inch circulars, like when you're knitting a hat or, kind of a small tube. If you're knitting something like a sweater, an entire sweater, and you're knitting it on 24 or 32-inch circulars, if your cast-on is tight for that and you can't get all the stitches to fit around, then you can just use magic loop. That's the easiest way to take care of it. And I'll give you a link to my video called Simple Magic Loop. But on this video, this is addressing questions, very specific questions that I get all the time about a tight cast-on when you're knitting a hat, especially a baby hat, or both of my Christmas stocking patterns get this question, because let's just say my Christmas stocking patterns, I give you a cast-on number, right? And you cast those on to your small 16-inch circular needles, and you have all the stitches there and you need to join in the round so you can knit in a tube. But if your cast-on is tight, then you can't fit those stitches around. You can't get them close enough together to actually join in the round. And I'll just tell you, I'm careful with my patterns. And if that was the case, like there wasn't going to be enough stitches, I wouldn't make you use 16-inch circulars. So I'm glad people get in touch with me so I can explain that to them. But before we actually get down to the nitty-gritty of, I've broken this down, I have so many samples here to show you. This video is sponsored by Knitter's Pride. I'm using all kinds of their needles. I'm using their Dreams needles, I'm using their Bamboo DPNs, I'm using their Platina needles, I'm using their Royale needles. You'll get a chance to see all of them. Each one is from an entire needle set, and Knitter's Pride is great that they put out these sets at such a good value, so you have all these different sizes. Most people don't have all these different sets like I do. You really just need one. If you're one knitter, you really just need one. I just have them so I can show them in the video, but it is a chance for us to see a whole bunch of their products all at once, and I'll talk a little bit about them as we run into them. But for now, let's go ahead and take a look. First, we have a good cast-on that's working on the stitches. And these are the Knitter's Pride, these are all 16-inch circulars. These are the Knitter's Pride Dreams needles. They are wood needles with a long taper and a sharp point. They're great all-purpose needles. I'll give you more information in the video description field and on my website about each one of these. So when the cast-on has good tension, the cast-on row is always going to be not tight, it's just less flexible than subsequent rows, right? So sometimes it takes a little bit of work, well, especially if you drop things and stitch markers go flying. I'm going to put a stitch marker on the right needle to mark the beginning of my round, and then I don't usually do any special tricks when I join in the round, so I just start knitting. You can see it's a little slow going. It's requiring a little more muscle just because the cast-on row is stiff. But that's a good cast-on, okay? You have to keep scooting things around, but everything fits. Okay, this is what we're after. That's ideal. Okay, next I have a cast-on these Knitter's Pride Platina needles. These are their chrome needles with a really long taper and a sharper point. It is a good needle set for fast knitters or people who want to improve their speed. Very slick. But the needles are awesome, but the cast-on's terrible. I did a really tight cast-on, exact same number of stitches as what you just saw. But there is no way I'm going to be able to get these stitches stretched around to join in the round, even using all of my muscles. Okay, that's just to show you this is what it's like when the cast-on's too tight. And if you're knitting a Christmas stocking, that might not be a problem that the cast-on's too tight. But if you're knitting a hat, a tight cast-on might mean that that hat is a brain squisher. So what is the solution? You can try casting on looser, but I'm going to go ahead and make the assumption that this is your natural way to cast on, okay? So I tried an experiment by using the exact same number of stitches and going up one needle size, and it wasn't enough. I went up 2 needle sizes and it worked. And these are the Royale needles, the wood with the metal tip. the needles, and it makes such a nice sound when you knit with them. And when I went up 2 needle sizes as a tight knitter, it was fine. I suddenly had a cast-on that was loose enough to fit around the way it should. I didn't add a marker there, but you get the point here. It actually works. 2 sizes up, I think, was the magic number for really tight knitters. And then once you do a couple of rounds, everything will loosen up significantly. The stitches will be much more flexible, and you won't have a difficult time with anything stretched like this. So you can just take your right needle and take off that tip and get the needle size you're supposed to have for the project, right? And attach it just on the right side. Keep the other stitches on the full-size needle, on the size you've been working on. And then once you get all the way around with the smaller needle on the right side, you can swap this one out. Again, this is a great way to use your interchangeable needle set. And boop, you're actually finished with the cast on and on the correct size needles. Now the last thing you can do, if you don't have an interchangeable needle set and you can't get those stitches around, the last thing you can do is to start your knitting on double pointed needles, because double pointed needles, being 3 needles, it can let you knit in a much smaller circumference. So after you do the cast on and a few rows, again, this is the exact same number of stitches that I had on the circular needles. Once you get away from the cast on a few rows, you can pick up your circular needles. I have the platinas here again, and just knit off of the double pointed needles onto your circular needles. I'm doing knit 2, purl 2, rib. The needles are making a noise on the table. I don't normally knit over a table when I'm knitting not on video. And then as you knit off the double pointed needles and onto the circulars, you just set your DPNs aside, and soon enough all the stitches will be on the circular needle. You place a marker and then just keep knitting in a tube. And these are the Knitter's Pride bamboo double pointed needles. This is a size 7. This set I think goes up to 10.5. These are the needles that I love to use for larger gauge double pointed needle knitting. And here is an example of a set of their needles. This is the Royale full-size needle set in the beautiful case with Paris on the back. Just thought I'd throw that last bit in. Okay, I hope that explains questions about tight cast-ons when you're working on 16-inch circulars. I hope that helps. Good luck.